and welcome to this very special episode of Kirk in the Cloud, where I'll be focusing on Kubernetes in conjunction with Kubernetes Day. Obviously, Kubernetes is a very hot topic right now, so much so that it's too much for me to handle by myself. So with me, I have a very special guest today who's very well known for his courses, videos, and books on Kubernetes and Docker, Nigel Poulton. Nigel, great to see you.
Hello, mate. Thanks for having me on this very special episode. And you called me very special as well. So, yeah, I'm honored.
So, a big topic to cover in not so much time. Nigel, for everyone watching, what is going on in the world of Kubernetes right now? Where are the challenges, and what sort of conversations are you having with people around those challenges?
Yeah, so Kubernetes has been around since like the summer of 2014, so it's not super new anymore, and I think that escapes a lot of people sometimes. But it's actually quite mature, or a lot of parts of it are quite mature, to the point where we're starting to see that it's almost enterprise ready. And I know because it has a lot of hype and a lot of momentum that a lot of enterprises are starting to look at it and kick the tires and things as well. The biggest challenge, though, is it's just still massively complex. Yeah, so I was just going to say, like, it's almost Kubernetes as a platform is sprawling, right? And it's kind of growing all the time, taking on and doing more and more things. But there is a really fine line with that as well, in that Kubernetes shouldn't be trying to do everything. Let's not reinvent the wheel if we don't have to. On the topic of enterprises wanting to adopt it, just on that kind of sprawl and not reinventing the wheel, one of the complexities that you have is, how do you not only deploy Kubernetes without being a Kubernetes expert, because most enterprises don't want to be Kubernetes experts, they just want to use it, but then how do we plug it into all of the stuff that's really important for our enterprise applications, like our battle-tested storage backends, like our ability to back up and recover and to migrate and things like that. And fortunately, I think at least the project has taken the approach that Kubernetes is not going to do storage and it's not going to do backup and replication. What it's going to do is it's going to expose a set of interfaces where you can take your existing best of breed products out there, plug them into Kubernetes so they can be leveraged by your applications. And I really feel like that's the right approach for the project to take. But I think as well, it's the approach that, I don't know, enterprises want to take, because rather than put their, crown jewels line of business applications on something new, let's just take storage as an example, because I think we all appreciate if storage goes down or we lose data, then it's a really bad place to be in. Instead of trust your storage elements of your Kubernetes apps to something new, plug them into something that you've been trusting for years. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
It does, right? Because I think, as you say, you've probably already made an investment in a lot of this technology for multiple years. You've also got the investment of your staff skills in terms of the team that can run it and troubleshoot it and maintain it and make sure it's optimal all the time. So yeah, it makes absolute sense that just because Kubernetes seems like such a buzzword, not to forget the fact that there's still the same principles around it and that you can make use of these existing investments as well.
Yeah, it's super important because it's kind of a buzzword, and we talk about, the way it does so many things very differently. Like, we refactor our applications and we design and we build them differently. But I do feel like all the supporting stuff that goes around it, and I won't mention storage this time, but security would be an example. You don't throw away the book on security and suddenly think that, everything you've been doing for years doesn't apply anymore. 100% it still does. So for an enterprise, at least, to be able to say, I can potentially take an existing product or tool set that I use and trust already, plug that into Kubernetes, have it be backed by one of my existing suppliers that we already trust from like an SLA and a support perspective, is a big tick for enterprises. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that startups and people that do all of this as well are not great. I am savvy to the fact that if you work at a big enterprise, bringing new suppliers and partners in is hard. So now that we're getting to the point, and it's an ongoing journey, but we are getting there, I feel, where you can say, yes, my existing entourage of suppliers and partners can now help me deploy Kubernetes and will help me sleep at night knowing that it's got a support contract and stuff. Just makes that deployment a lot easier. Or, going to your C-level executives and saying, this is what it's going to look like, it is a much easier conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also just going back and being able to say, listen, we're able to not focus our resources on providing a different type of value rather than the configuration and monitoring of this ongoing sort of new infrastructure that's out there as well. So if a partner can bring something that helps you move that focus to providing value back to the business again, then that certainly seems to be the trend we see across the board, right? So even just Kubernetes as a whole, we're starting to see a lot more managed Kubernetes as a whole, right? So, people saying, we'll do the heavy lift for you. We'll make sure it's patched. We'll make sure it's secure. And then the natural progression on that is then actually being very application centric and looking at, well, actually, let's look at the things you're trying to run in Kubernetes. Is there a way we can make it simpler to observe those, to protect those, to ensure that you have the things that you've probably already been doing for many years in other architectures on-prem, possibly even in the cloud, and make sure that you have that parity that the business expects without having those surprises or making it too overly complex where it gets to the stage where one or two people in the business know this inside out and it's actually more of a risk. I certainly agree on those points as well. I mean, in terms of sort of typical deployments that you see out there, would you agree, they're usually your sort of MySQL, Postgres, are trending towards a more persistent stateful workload, right?
100%. Yeah.
Very different place.
Yeah. So I think Kubernetes did what VMware and a lot of things have done in the past and picked that easy, low-hanging fruit of the stateless compute. But to make it in the enterprise, you've got to work with real applications that manage real data. And we are getting to that point. 2019 and 2020 were actually huge years when it came to putting together the plumbing for that, container storage interface, the ability to extend the Kubernetes API, things like that were all massively important to get us to the point where we are now, where, like I was saying before, you can take your trusted battle-hardened storage arrays or whatever, plug them into Kubernetes. We couldn't have done that, or we couldn't do that easily in the past before we had like the CSI at version 1.0 earlier in 2020. So 2020, really big year for putting all of like the plumbing in place for persistent applications and persistent data. And I'm kind of hoping that 2021 and 2022 will really see us leverage that, and we'll see partners step up to the plate, if you don't mind me saying, with their A game, and really drive that adoption within the enterprise, because it isn't up to Kubernetes as a project to do all of that stuff. It's created the plumbing and it exposes the APIs. Now let's plug all the good stuff in and let's go and rock and roll in the enterprise.
Couldn't agree more. And I think, one of the things about modern architecture is once you've got an API, you're almost looking at endless possibilities in a way, in terms of being able to bring either your skills, your specializations into fixing particular challenges. It's a lot easier once that API is mature, which we're seeing in Kubernetes, to be able to go and say, how do we solve that problem around data and data recovery, or from an application perspective? How do we, for example, do things like looking at the overall architecture? Is this been sized correctly? Or is there an opportunity to even save money here? Are we cost optimized, or are we leaving the lights on, every night as well? So I think those possibilities are genuinely exciting for anyone in this space, and certainly something that I'm sure the viewers of this are going to find out a lot more about.
Yeah, do you know what? So I'm a Kubernetes and a containers person now, but I come from more than 10 years working in the enterprise as a storage guy. So it's really close to my heart. Like, I'm quite passionate about Kubernetes and containers being successful in the enterprise. And genuinely, I do feel like the plumbing is laid, and it's up to us as, you know, enterprises and end users, but also partners to actually make it happen. Now it's all there ready to happen. And for an old-fashioned storage enterprise guy working in this space now, it is pretty exciting times.
So for anyone watching, you know, as you can see, there's a lot of challenges out there, and you're going to be learning some of the solutions out there that aim to go and solve these and make these a lot easier for you as you encounter them. So Nigel, couldn't agree more. Like you say, lots of developments going on in the space, a lot of maturity now there. You know, Kubernetes is here. It's coming for you. And I'd just like to close with that by just saying thank you for joining me, sharing your experiences with everyone on this video today. And resistance is futile, as you said.
It is.